Jake Morrison sat in the cold metal chair and looked around the huge room. The Galactic Council Chamber was bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. Hundreds of different alien creatures sat in rows that went up to the ceiling. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like they were made of crystal. Jake was the only human in the room. He had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years now. Today felt different, though. The message he got yesterday was simple but strange. The council wanted to ask him about fighting sports on Earth. Jake had no idea why they cared about boxing or wrestling. Chairman Zethkar stood up at the front. He was 8 feet tall with green scales and yellow eyes. When he spoke, his voice was deep and scary. We call this meeting to discuss a problem we found about planet Earth. Jake felt his heart beat faster. A problem? What kind of problem? We have studied all member planets, Zethkar said. We looked at their cultures, their history, their sports. We found something very strange about Earth. Lisa Carter sat next to Jake. She was Earth's cultural expert and knew more about alien societies than anyone else from their planet. She whispered, "Stay calm. Let him talk." Zethkar held up a datapad. Every planet in our galaxy has one form of ritual combat, maybe 2 at most. These are old traditions that happen once a year or when someone dies. But Earth ... He paused and looked right at Jake. Earth has dozens of fighting sports. Hundreds, maybe. Murmurs started around the room. Jake heard alien voices speaking in languages he did not know. Some sounded worried. Others sounded angry. Beautiful creature made of blue crystal stood up. Her name was Veltana, and she spoke for the Crystalline Collective. Her voice sounded like music. We counted 47 different combat sports on Earth. Boxing, wrestling, martial arts, fencing, and many others. Why does one planet need so many ways to fight? Jake started to answer, but Zethkar raised his hand. We are not done. These sports happen every day on Earth. Millions of humans watch other humans fight for fun. They pay money to see violence. The room got louder. Jake saw fear in many alien eyes. A creature that looked like a giant bug clicked its mandibles. Another alien that was covered in white fur growled low. This is not normal, Zethkar continued. The Saurian people had one combat ritual. We stopped doing it 500 years ago because it was too violent. The Crystalline Collective never had any fighting at all. The insectoid hives have worker disputes, but no combat sports. Why are humans different? Lisa leaned forward in her chair. May I speak, Chairman? You may. These sports are not about violence, Lisa said. They are about skill, training, and respect. Human fighters follow rules. They shake hands before and after fights. A creature with tentacles instead of arms made a noise like laughing. Rules? You punch each other in the face with rules? More. Aliens started talking at once. Jake heard words like dangerous and aggressive and violent species. His face got hot with anger, but he remembered his training. Stay calm. Listen first. Zethkar hit his gavel 3 times. The room got quiet. Ambassador Morrison, your species joined our council 5 years ago. We welcomed humans because you were smart and helpful. But this discovery worries us. Are humans more violent than other species? Jake stood up slowly. He was much shorter than most aliens in the room, but he made his voice strong. Chairman, humans are not violent. We are competitive. There is a big difference. Explain this difference, Veltana said. Jake looked around the room. So many different faces looked back at him. Some seemed curious now instead of scared. On Earth, fighting. Sports keep people peaceful. When humans can compete in a ring with rules, they do not fight in the streets without rules. An alien that looked like a tall gray stick raised one of its 4 arms. This makes no sense. Fighting creates more fighting. Not with humans, Jake. Sighed, we learned to control our fighting instincts. We made them into games and sports. A boxer trains for months to fight for 30 minutes. He learns discipline, respect, and control. Zethkar's yellow eyes got narrow. You say humans have fighting instincts. Other species do not have these instincts. We evolved past them. Lisa stood up next to Jake. That might be the difference. Chairman, humans evolved as both hunters and prey. We had to fight to survive for millions of years. Other species might have had different evolutionary paths. The room was completely quiet now. Jake could hear his own breathing. Valtana's crystal body sparkled as she moved. Are you saying humans are naturally violent? No, Jake said quickly. We are saying humans found a way to use our nature for good instead of evil. Our ancestors fought with clubs and stones. Now we fight with gloves and rules and referees. A small alien with big eyes spoke up. But why do other humans watch these fights? Why do they enjoy seeing violence? Jake thought about Friday nights watching boxing with his father. He thought about cheering for his favorite fighters. How could he explain that to creatures who never felt that excitement? They do not enjoy violence, he said. They enjoy seeing skill, courage, and hard work. A good fight shows the best of what humans can be. Chairman Zethkar looked at his datapad again. This council has a decision to make. Are human fighting sports a sign of a dangerous species? Or are they something else? He looked directly at Jake, Ambassador Morrison. I am giving you and your team 30 days. You will prepare a full presentation about these fighting sports. You will explain why Earth has so many and why other planets do not. You will show us that humans are not a threat to galactic peace. Jake felt the weight of those words. 30 days to save humanity's place in the galaxy. If your explanation is not good enough, Zethkar continued, the Council will vote on Earth's membership. Some members already think humans are too dangerous. The meeting ended and aliens started leaving. Jake sat back down in his chair. His hands were shaking. Lisa put her hand on his shoulder. We can do this, Jake. We just need to help them understand. Jake nodded, but inside he was worried. How do you explain the beauty of a perfect boxing match to someone who has never felt the thrill of competition? How do you show the honor in martial arts to creatures who see only violence? He had 30 days to find out. Jake Morrison stood in the big meeting room in Geneva. Through the window, he could see the mountains covered in snow. But his mind was not on the beautiful view. He was thinking about the team he needed to build. Lisa Carter sat across from him, with files spread all over the table. I made a list of people we need, she said. We cannot just send politicians to talk to the council. We need real fighters, real experts. Jake picked up one of the files. Danny Rodriguez, former UFC champion. Why him? Because he can show them what mixed martial arts really means, Lisa said. Danny is not just strong. He is smart. He studied engineering before he became a fighter. He can explain the science behind fighting techniques. The door opened and a woman in a military uniform walked in. General Patrick Hayes was the kind of man who made rooms feel smaller just by being there. His gray hair was cut short and his back was straight as a board. Ambassador, the general said, I heard about your council problem. The president sent me to help. Jake shook the general's hand. We need to show them that our fighting sports are not about violence, General. They are about discipline and control. General. Hayes sat down and looked at the files. I know just the people you need. Katie Walsh won gold in fencing at the Olympics. She also has a degree in history. She can trace fighting sports back thousands of years. Lisa wrote down the name. What? About military training? The aliens are worried that our fighting sports make us dangerous soldiers. Steve Johnson, the general said without thinking. Retired Navy SEAL. Best hand-to-hand combat instructor I ever saw. But here is the important part. Steve teaches control, not killing. He shows soldiers how to stop fights, not start them. Over. The next week, Jake's team grew. Amy Chun was a sports psychologist who studied why humans liked to compete. She had written books about how fighting sports helped people deal with anger and stress. The team met for the first time in a gym in Colorado. Jake felt strange watching Danny Rodriguez warm up. The man was not huge, but he moved like water. Every motion had purpose. So you want me to show aliens how to fight? Danny asked while stretching his legs. No, Lisa said. We want you to show them why humans fight. What makes it special for us? Danny stopped stretching and looked serious. You know, people think fighters are dumb. They think we just like to hurt people. But that is not true. Fighting taught me more about myself than anything else in my life. Katie Walsh walked into the gym carrying a bag of swords. She was smaller than Jake expected, but her eyes were sharp and focused. Sorry I am late. I was at the airport explaining to security why I travel with weapons. She opened her bag and pulled out a fencing sword. The metal caught the light and sparkled. This is a foil. It has been used in sport for over 400 years. Before that, sword fighting was about life and death. We took something deadly and made it into art. Steve Johnson was the last to arrive. He looked like he could break most people in half, but his voice was quiet and calm. General Hayes told me about your problem. The aliens think we are violent. They do not understand, Jake said. They see our fighting sports and think we are dangerous. Steve nodded slowly. I have trained soldiers from 12 different countries. You know what I learned? The best fighters are not angry. They are calm. They are controlled. Fighting sports teach that control. Amy Chun had been watching everyone talk. Now she spoke up. This is exactly what we need to show the council. Human fighting is not about anger or violence. It is about turning our natural instincts into something positive. The team spent 3 days together. Danny showed them basic martial arts moves. Katie taught them about the history of sword fighting. Steve demonstrated military hand-to-hand combat techniques. Amy explained the psychology behind why humans enjoyed watching fights. Jake learned something new every day. He watched Danny spar with Steve and saw something beautiful. Two strong men trying their best to win, but following rules. They shook hands before they started and hugged when they finished. This is what we need to show them, Jake thought. The respect, the friendship, the honor. Lisa was busy researching other species. She spent hours reading about alien cultures and their history. What she found was interesting. Look at this, she said to the team on their last day together. The Saurians used to have ritual combat, but they stopped because they thought it was too primitive. The Crystalline Collective never fought at all because they are a hive mind. They share thoughts, so individual competition does not make sense. To them, Danny was taping his hands for practice. So we are the only ones who kept fighting but made it safe. Exactly, Lisa said. Other species either gave up fighting completely or never developed it at all. We are unique. Katie was polishing her sword. That makes sense. Humans have always been different. We are not the strongest or fastest, but we are the most stubborn. We never give up. Steve was doing push-ups in the corner. Between exercises, he said, the aliens are afraid because they do not understand. They think fighting equals violence. But look at us. We are fighters, and we are peaceful. Amy was taking notes the whole time. This is perfect data for our presentation. We can show them brain scans of fighters. We can prove that combat sports actually reduce aggressive behavior in humans. Jake felt hopeful for the first time since the council meeting. His team was ready. But he knew the hardest part was still coming. We have 3 weeks left, he told them. We need to create a presentation that will save humanity's place in the galaxy. No pressure. Danny laughed. I have been in championship fights with millions of people watching. I think I can handle some aliens. But as the team prepared to leave, Jake noticed something in their eyes. They understood how important this was. Earth's future might depend on whether they could explain why humans loved to fight. The next day, Jake got a message from Zethkar. Ambassador Morrison, the Council has been discussing your species. Some members are very worried. They think humans might be too dangerous to stay in the Galaxy Alliance. Your presentation must be very good. Jake showed the message to Lisa. She read it twice and then looked at him. Jake, what if we fail? What if they decide to kick humanity out of the Council? Jake looked out the window at the busy streets of Geneva. People were walking to work. Children were playing in the park. Couples were holding hands. Normal people, living normal lives. They had no idea that their future in the galaxy might depend on explaining why some humans like to punch each other. We will not fail, Jake said. We cannot fail. Too much depends on this. But deep down, he was scared. How do you prove that violence can be beautiful? How do you show that fighting can bring peace? How do you explain the human heart to creatures who might not have hearts at all? He had less than 3 weeks to find out. The clock was ticking, and the fate of humanity was in his hands. Dr. Marcus Taylor floated in zero gravity inside the research station orbiting the Saurian homeworld. Through the window, he could see the green and brown planet below. Somewhere down there lived creatures who used to fight but chose to stop. Marcus was a xenobiologist, which meant he studied alien life forms. Jake Morrison had asked him to find out why other species did not have fighting sports like humans did. After 2 weeks of research, Marcus was starting to understand something amazing. Rachel, you need to see this, he called to his partner. Rachel. Green pushed herself across the room using handholds on the walls. She was a diplomatic historian who knew more about alien cultures than almost anyone. Her job was to study how different species developed their societies. What did you find? Rachel asked, looking at the data on Marcus's screen. Look at the Saurian evolution chart, Marcus said. They were pure predators. For millions of years. They hunted other creatures, but nothing hunted them. They never had to fight for survival the way humans did. Rachel studied the information. That makes sense. If you are always the hunter and never the prey, you do not need to develop complex fighting skills. Marcus pulled up another chart. Now look at the crystalline collective. They evolved from creatures that lived in groups and shared everything. They never competed with each other because they could share thoughts and feelings. So they never needed individual combat because they were never individuals, Rachel said. They were always part of a group mind. Tony Martinez was filming everything. He was making a documentary about combat sports that they would show to the council. Tony had spent his whole career filming fights, but this research was opening his eyes to something bigger. This is incredible, Tony said, adjusting his camera. We are the only species that had to be both hunter and prey. We had to fight predators and compete with each other for food and territory. Dr. Samantha Lee was working at another computer. She was an evolutionary biologist studying how different species developed over millions of years. Her research was showing something that surprised everyone. Marcus, look at this, Samantha said. I found data on 43 different species in the council. 31 of them were pure predators. 8 were pure prey animals that survived by hiding or running. 4 were hive minds like the crystalline collective. What about humans? Rachel asked. Humans are the only persistence hunters, Samantha explained. We were not fast enough to catch prey quickly like big cats. We were not strong enough to overpower large animals like bears. Instead, we chased our prey for hours or days until they got tired. Marcus felt excited as he understood what this meant. So we had to be smart, tough, and stubborn. We could not give up. Exactly, Samantha said. But we also had to worry about being eaten by other predators. Humans lived in a world where we had to fight to hunt and fight to survive. Tony kept filming as the team made more discoveries. Rachel found records of the insectoid hives. These creatures looked like giant ants and lived in huge underground cities. The insectoids never developed individual fighting because their society does not have individuals, Rachel explained. Each bug is part of a larger organism. They work together perfectly, but they cannot understand personal competition. Marcus discovered something interesting about the ethereal species. These creatures were made of energy instead of flesh and blood. They do not have physical bodies that can be hurt, he said. Fighting makes no sense to them because they cannot feel pain or injury. The team spent days studying species after species. Each one had a good reason why fighting sports never developed in their culture. Some were too peaceful. Others were too violent. A few had evolved past the need for physical competition. We are starting to see a pattern, Samantha said during their daily meeting. Every other species either evolved as a specialist or they gave up their fighting instincts completely. What do you mean by specialist? Tony asked, still filming. Pure predator, pure prey, pure hive mind, pure energy being, Samantha explained. Each species became very good at one thing. Humans stayed generalists. We kept all our different abilities. Rachel was reading historical records from the Council archives. Look at this. The Saurians stopped their ritual combat 500 years ago. They decided it was too primitive and violent. Why? Marcus asked. Because they achieved perfect order in their society, Rachel read from the files. They eliminated crime and war through genetic modification. They made themselves incapable of violence. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. They changed their own biology to remove aggression. Many species did that, Rachel said sadly. The canine people used drugs to make themselves completely peaceful. The avian species genetically modified their children to remove all competitive instincts. Tony lowered his camera. They gave up part of what made them who they were. It looks that way, Samantha said. Most galactic civilizations saw fighting and competition as problems to be solved. They used technology or science to eliminate these traits. The team worked in silence for a while. Marcus felt sad thinking about species that had changed themselves so much. Yes, they had achieved peace, but what had they lost? Rachel found more. Records. Here is something interesting. Before they modified themselves, the Saurian people had 17 different forms of ritual combat. The canine people had 12. Even the peaceful ethereal beings used to have competition between different energy forms. So they all used to fight? Tony asked. They all used to compete, Samantha corrected. But they saw it as a weakness to overcome, not a strength to control. Marcus was looking at human evolution data now. Humans had the same choice. We could have modified ourselves to be completely peaceful. We had the technology, but we chose not to. Why? Rachel asked. Marcus smiled. Because we learned to control our instincts instead of eliminating them. We turned fighting into sport. We turned competition into games. We kept what made us human, but made it safe. The team continued their research for another week. They found that humans were unique in dozens of ways. Other species had either specialized into one role or had artificially modified themselves. to remove natural instincts. "We need to show this to Jake," Tony said. "Humans are not more violent than other species. We are the only species that found a healthy way to express our natural competitive instincts." Rachel was excited now. "Do you realize what this means?" The other species in the council gave up important parts of themselves to achieve peace. They are probably missing something and do not even know it. Samantha looked at all their data. Humans might be the most complete species in the galaxy. We kept our hunting instincts, our competitive nature, our individual identity, and our group cooperation. We just learned to channel everything in positive ways. Marcus felt proud to be human for the first time in weeks. When the council first questioned Earth's fighting sports, he had been embarrassed. Now he understood that those sports were something to be proud of. "Fighting sports are not a sign that humans are violent," he said. "They are proof that humans are wise. We found a way to keep our nature without letting it destroy us." Tony filmed Marcus making that statement. "That needs to be in our presentation." The team prepared to return to Earth with their findings. They had discovered something amazing about humanity's place in the galaxy. Humans were not the most violent species. They were the only species that had learned to be competitive and peaceful at the same time. But Marcus wondered if the council would see it that way. Would they understand that giving up your nature was not the same as controlling it? Would they realize that humans had achieved something special? As their ship left orbit around the Saurian homeworld, Marcus looked back at the green planet. Somewhere down there lived creatures who used to fight but had forgotten how. He felt sorry for them. In 3 days, Jake Morrison would present humanity's case to the Galactic Council. The fate of Earth would depend on whether the aliens could understand that sometimes keeping your wild side was better than cutting it out. The Galactic Council chamber was packed. Jake Morrison had never seen so many different alien species in one place. Every seat was filled, and some creatures were standing along the walls. Word had spread across the galaxy about the human presentation. Jake stood at the front of the room with his team behind him. Danny Rodriguez wore a simple black suit, but Jake could see the muscles underneath. Katie Walsh had her fencing gear in a bag by her feet. Steve Johnson stood at attention like the soldier he used to be. Amy Chun held a tablet full of research data. Chairman Zethkar hit his gavel 3 times. The council will now hear from Earth about their combat sports. Ambassador Morrison, you have 2 hours to convince us that humans are not a dangerous species. Jake looked around the room. Some aliens looked curious. Others looked scared. A few looked angry. In the back row, he saw Admiral Jack Thompson in his blue uniform. The Admiral had flown in from Earth's space fleet to answer any military questions. Chairman Zethkar, members of the council, Jake began. 30 days ago, you asked why Earth has so many fighting sports. Today, we will show you the answer. But first, we want to ask you a question. Jake pressed a button, and a hologram appeared above his head. It showed pictures of different alien species. How many of you remember what your people were like before they achieved perfect peace? The room became very quiet. Jake saw some aliens look uncomfortable. Our research team studied 43 species in this council, Jake continued. We learned something amazing. Almost every species used to have some form of combat or competition. But most of you chose to eliminate these instincts completely. Veltana, the crystal creature, spoke up. We evolved past primitive violence. This is what civilized beings do. Lisa Carter stepped forward. With respect, Ambassador Veltana, humans believe there is a difference between eliminating violence and controlling it. Jake nodded to Danny Rodriguez. Danny, please show them what controlled combat looks like. Danny moved to the center of the room. He was wearing soft practice gloves and protective gear. Steve Johnson joined him wearing similar equipment. This is called sparring, Danny explained. Steve and I will fight, but with rules. We will show you how humans turn fighting into art. The two men faced each other and bowed. Then they began to move. It was beautiful to watch. Danny threw punches that Steve blocked or avoided. Steve tried to grab Danny, but Danny slipped away. They moved like dancers, each trying to win, but neither trying to hurt the other. After 2 minutes, they stopped and hugged each other. Both men were breathing hard, but smiling. That was fighting? Asked a creature that looked like a giant bird. But you did not hurt each other. That is the point, Steve said. Human combat sports teach us to be strong without being cruel. We learn to compete without destroying. Katie Walsh opened her bag and pulled out 2 fencing swords. This sport is over 400 years old. Before this, humans fought with real swords and people died. We took something deadly and made it safe. She demonstrated fencing moves in the air. Her sword moved so fast it was hard to see. Fencing teaches precision, timing, and respect. We touch our opponent with the sword tip, but we do not hurt them. Amy Chun stepped forward with her tablet. I study the psychology of combat sports. Our research shows that humans who participate in fighting sports are actually less violent in daily life. She showed charts and graphs to the council. Look at this data. Countries with popular fighting sports have lower crime rates. Cities with boxing gyms have less street violence. Combat sports give humans a safe way to express competitive instincts. A creature made of what looked like living metal raised one of its arms. But why do humans have these violent instincts at all? We eliminated ours long ago. Dr. Susan Clark had joined the presentation by video link from Earth. Her face appeared on a large screen. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We had to chase prey for days while also avoiding predators. This made us tough, stubborn, and competitive. She showed brain scans of human fighters. When humans engage in combat sports, their brains release chemicals that reduce stress and aggression. Fighting sports actually make humans more peaceful, not more violent. Jake saw some aliens nodding their heads. Others still looked confused. Chairman Zeth Carr was writing notes. Admiral Thompson stepped forward. Some of you are worried that human fighting sports make us dangerous soldiers. I command Earth's space fleet, so let me address this concern. The room got very quiet. Many aliens were afraid of human military power. Human soldiers are trained in combat, yes, the Admiral said. But our best warriors are not the most aggressive ones. They are the most controlled ones. Our fighting sports teach the discipline that makes good soldiers. He looked around the room. A boxer learns to stay calm under pressure. A martial artist learns to use only the force necessary. A fencer learns precision over power. These lessons make better peacekeepers, not better killers. Jake pressed another button and new holograms appeared. We want to show you what other species lost when they eliminated their fighting instincts. The holograms showed data from Dr. Marcus Taylor's research. The Saurian people used to have 17 different combat forms. They were creative, individual, and expressive. After they eliminated fighting, their art became repetitive. Their music became simple. Their literature became boring. Zeth Carr's yellow eyes got wide. You are saying we became less creative? Not less intelligent, Jake said carefully, but maybe less complete. Competition and conflict drive innovation. When you remove all conflict, you might also remove the drive to grow and change. Rachel Green appeared on the video screen next to Dr. Clark. We studied the history of every council species. Before you achieved perfect peace, your societies produced amazing art, music, literature, and science. After peace, progress slowed down significantly. The Ru erupted in noise. Aliens were talking to each other in dozens of different languages. Some sounded angry. Others sounded worried. Chairman Zeth Carr hit his gavel hard. Order, order. When the room got quiet, Theltana stood up. Are you saying that peace is bad? No, Amy Chun answered. We are saying that there are different kinds of peace. You achieved peace by removing conflict. Humans achieved peace by controlling conflict. Annie stepped forward again. When I fight in the ring, I am competing with my opponent. But I am also competing with myself. I try to be better than I was yesterday. This drive to improve makes humans explore space, create art, and push boundaries. Katie added, our fighting sports preserve the human spirit that got us to the stars. Without that competitive drive, would we have ever left Earth? Jake could see that some aliens were starting to understand. The bird-like creature was nodding. Even some of the scary-looking predator species seemed interested. We are not asking you to change your societies, Jake said. We are asking you to understand ours. Human fighting sports are not about violence. They are about growth, discipline, respect, and the controlled expression of natural instincts. Steve Johnson spoke up. In human combat sports, the goal is not to destroy your opponent. The goal is to be better than your opponent, while helping them be better too. Good fighters make each other stronger. Admiral Thompson added, this is why human peacekeepers are effective. We understand conflict because we practice it safely. We can end fights because we know how fights work. Jake looked around the room one more time. Members of the council, humans are not asking you to fear us. We are asking you to trust us. Our fighting sports are proof that we can be strong and peaceful at the same time. Chairman Zethkar was quiet for a long moment. The council will now ask questions. For the next hour, aliens asked about everything. How did human fighting sports develop? Why did humans choose control instead of elimination? What happened to humans who did not participate in sports? Jake's team answered every question. They showed videos of children learning martial arts and gaining confidence. They explained how boxing taught discipline to troubled youth. They demonstrated how fencing required intelligence as much as physical skill. Finally, Zethkar stood up. This council will debate what we have heard today. Ambassador Morrison, you and your team will have our decision in 3 days. As the aliens filed out of the chamber, Jake felt exhausted. They had given everything they had. Now they could only wait and hope that the council understood. Lisa put her hand on Jake's shoulder. That was amazing. I think we got through to some of them. But Jake was watching Zethkar talk quietly with other alien leaders. Their expressions were serious. 3 days felt like a very long time when the future of humanity was at stake. Jake Morrison could not eat breakfast. His stomach felt like it was full of rocks. Today, the Galactic Council would announce their decision about humanity's future. He sat in his quarters on the space station, staring out at the stars. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Lisa Carter came in carrying 2 cups of coffee. You need to eat something, she said. I cannot, Jake replied. What if we failed? What if they decide to kick humanity out of the galaxy? Lisa sat down next to him. Then we will deal with it. But I do not think we failed. Did you see how some of the aliens looked during our presentation? They were interested, not scared. Jake's communication device beeped. It was a message from Chairman Zethkar. All human representatives report to Council Chamber 1 immediately. Jake and Lisa walked through the corridors of the space station. Other members of their team joined them along the way. Danny Rodriguez looked calm, but Jake could see tension in his shoulders. Katie Walsh carried her fencing bag, even though she would not need it today. Steve Johnson walked with military precision, but his jaw was tight-dot when they entered the council chamber. Jake was surprised. The room was even more crowded than 3 days ago. He saw species that had never attended council meetings before. Some aliens had traveled from the far edges of the galaxy to be here today. Chairman Zethkar stood at the front of the room. His green scales caught the light as he moved. The council has debated for 3 days, he announced. We have discussed the human presentation from every angle. Jake held his breath. Some council members were concerned about human aggression, Zethkar continued. Others were fascinated by human methods of controlled conflict. But one question kept coming up in our debates. The chairman paused and looked directly at Jake. If human fighting sports are so beneficial, why do other species not have them? Jake felt confused. That was not the question he expected. Veltana, the crystal creature, stood up. Ambassador Morrison, after hearing your presentation, the Crystalline Collective has made a decision. We want to learn human fighting sports. Jake's mouth fell open. You, what? We have analyzed your data, Veltana explained. For 500 years, our society has remained exactly the same. We have made no progress in art, science, or exploration. We think the controlled conflict you described might help us grow again. A creature that looked like a giant cat with blue fur raised its paw. The feline confederacy agrees. We eliminated our hunting instincts 300 years ago. Since then, our people have become lazy and bored. We want to remember what competition feels like. Jake looked at Lisa. She looked as shocked as he felt. Chairman Zethkar continued, 17 different species have requested human instructors to help them develop their own combat sports programs. The Council has voted to establish the Galactic Combat Sports Initiative, with Earth as the headquarters. Jake felt like the room was spinning. This was not what he had expected at all. A creature that looked like a walking tree spoke in a voice like wind through leaves. The Forest Collective has studied human history. Before humans developed fighting sports, they had constant wars. After developing fighting sports, wars became rare. We want this wisdom for our people. Danny Rodriguez stepped forward. You want us to teach you how to fight? We want you to teach us how to compete without destroying, corrected the tree creature. Human combat sports show us a way to have conflict that makes people stronger, not weaker. Chairman Zethkar raised his hand for silence. The Saurian Dominion has made a difficult decision. We are going to restore our ancient combat traditions, but with human guidance. We want to remember what we lost when we eliminated our fighting spirit. Jake could not believe what he was hearing. The same aliens who had been afraid of human violence 3 days ago now wanted to learn from humans. Small alien with big eyes and gray skin spoke up. The Peaceful Coalition has always prided itself on having no conflict, but our young people are restless. They have no challenges, no way to prove themselves. Perhaps controlled combat sports could give them purpose. Steve Johnson looked amazed. You are asking us to teach the galaxy how to fight. We are asking you to teach us how to be complete, Veltana answered. Your presentation showed us that we may have cut away important parts of ourselves when we eliminated all conflict. Admiral Thompson stood up. What about the concerns that humans are too dangerous? What about our military capabilities? Chairman Zethkar's yellow eyes seemed to smile. Admiral, we have realized something important. Human soldiers are not dangerous because they know how to fight. They are trustworthy because they know how to control fighting. Your combat sports have made you better peacekeepers, not better conquerors. Katie Walsh raised her hand. How would this work? Each species is different. Crystalline beings cannot punch like humans can. Veltana's crystal body sparkled with excitement. We have been thinking about this. Crystal beings could have light-based combat sports. Energy beings could compete with force fields. Insectoid species could have team-based combat that uses their hive instincts. Amy Chun looked thrilled. This is incredible. We could study how combat sports affect different types of minds and bodies. The research possibilities are endless. A creature made of living metal spoke in a voice like grinding gears. The mechanical empire wants to understand human durability. Our people break easily because we never learn to take damage and recover. Human fighters show us how to be strong and flexible. Jake finally found his voice. Are you saying that humanity is not being expelled from the council? Chairman Zethkar made a sound that might have been laughter. Ambassador Morrison, humanity is not being expelled. You are being promoted. The council is creating a new position, Galactic Combat Sports Commissioner. We want to offer this job to Earth. Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. They want us to run combat. Sports for the entire galaxy? Not just run them, Zethkar explained. Create them. Each species will need different types of combat sports based on their biology and culture. Humans will help design these sports and train instructors. Danny Rodriguez grinned. I have always wanted to see what an alien martial arts tournament would look like. The next few hours were a blur of planning and excitement. Different alien species lined up to talk to the human team. Each group wanted something different. The insect-like creatures wanted team combat sports that would challenge their hive mind, coordination. The energy beings wanted contests that would test their ability to control their powers. The mechanical species wanted sports that would teach them about damage and repair. Paul Davis, a former boxing commissioner from Earth, appeared on the video screen. Jake, I have been watching the news feeds from Earth. The whole planet is celebrating. They want me to start organizing the new Galactic Combat Sports Commission. Melissa Brown, who had taught self-defense to women for 20 years, joined the video call. I volunteer to develop combat sports programs for species that have never had individual competition. This is the most exciting project I have ever heard of. Ryan Murphy, a former wrestler who had become a sports coordinator, was already making plans. We will need training facilities on dozens of different worlds. Each species will need equipment designed for their specific body types. As the day continued, Jake began to understand how big this project would be. Humans would not just be teaching aliens how to fight. They would be helping entire civilizations rediscover parts of themselves that had been lost for centuries. Dr. Marcus Taylor appeared on another video screen. Jake, the research implications are staggering. We will learn more about alien biology and psychology in the next 10 years than we have in the past century. Chairman Zethkar called for order one final time. The Council has one more announcement. In 1 year, we will hold the first Intergalactic Combat Sports Festival. Every species will demonstrate their new fighting traditions. Humans will organize this event. Jake looked around the room at creatures that had been afraid of humanity just a few days ago. Now they looked at humans with respect and excitement. There is one more thing, Zethkar said. The Council has voted to officially recognize that. Humans have achieved something unique in galactic history. You have learned to be warriors and peacekeepers at the same time. This makes you valuable allies and trusted friends. As aliens began to leave the chamber, many stopped to shake hands with the human team. Jake watched a crystal being carefully touch Danny's fist in what might have been their version of a handshake. A mechanical creature awkwardly hugged Katie Walsh. Lisa looked at Jake with tears in her eyes. We did it. We not only saved humanity's place in the galaxy, we showed them something they had been missing. Jake nodded, but he was thinking about something bigger. 3 days ago, humans had been seen as potentially dangerous. Today, they were seen as teachers and leaders. The galaxy was about to change in ways no one could imagine. 6 months later, Jake stood in the first galactic training facility on a space station near Earth. Through the windows, he could see ships from dozens of different worlds bringing eager students to learn human fighting techniques. In one corner, crystal beings were learning to create beautiful light patterns while competing with each other. Nearby, mechanical creatures were practicing controlled collisions that taught them about resilience. Energy beings floated overhead, testing TH.